Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe from downtown Detroit on Saturday morning. I've got my cup of Joe here. And throughout the weeks, the cup of Joe has had, different versions that kind of happen to me throughout the week. Some weeks it's a theme emerges, and a lot of different articles catch my attention, or there's clearly a current event, a political event, a business event that's like the theme of the week, and I can't not say something because of who I am. In other weeks, it's kind of more of a potpourri. There's a bunch of random articles, deep dives, just different things, kind of quick hits or whatever. And that is more what the Cup of Joe is that week. And then last week, it was, sort of a long essay just sharing something about myself, about my experience. And so this week, it's kind of interesting because I felt like there would be a little bit of a streams of consciousness to this week, but it did all come together. I know everybody's talking about GameStop and Robinhood, and I'll certainly tie that in, but it was a different theme that emerged from the articles and some of the topics that were sent to me this week. So, one that comes to mind is I saw on LinkedIn this survey about the upper Midwest and tech talent and entrepreneurs, coming or going from certain cities, particularly in the Midwest. And early on in the Cup of Joe, I had floated this idea to the readers, to everybody, about what should we call the revitalization or the potential revitalization in the upper Midwest? And you can see if you go back, and I don't have no expectation that you would early on there, my best friend Brad, who I talked about last week, he submitted the idea of authentic cities, these authentic American cities with the history and the character and the story. I had voted for Next Belt. And since the Saturday Cup of Joe's mine, apologies to Brad, we're going with Next Belt. And so for the last couple of years, I have been calling it the Next Belt because I felt like when anyone wrote about Detroit or Cleveland or Pittsburgh, Louisville, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, they always wrote either the Rust Belt or former Rust Belt. I thought we got to rebrand that because even if you're not saying it, you're getting the words in there with former Rust Belt. So Next Belt felt to me to capture some of the potential, affordability, the uh, the clean slate or open slate to build on that a lot of these cities have. The fact that you can be digital from anywhere, even then we were talking about that, and how Detroit represented what's next, and move here, move the world type of concept. And I liked that, and I've always supported. So it turns out from the survey, LinkedIn found tech talent is not only not leaving, so sticking around cities like Cleveland, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, Detroit, but we're also attracting new tech talent and entrepreneurs in this moment because of the pandemic, telework, the ability to live anywhere. And so when most people think of where they want to live or what city, the first question is always, can you afford it? And that seems to be the thing. Can I afford it? So, I'll throw this graph in the post, but cities where, you can afford to buy versus the average rent in that city are cities like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Charlotte, Orlando, and Tampa, cities like Las Vegas, Tucson, and Phoenix area. You can actually buy uh, versus the market rent. There's other cities where you can't, right? We all know Manhattan and Brooklyn, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, Dallas, Los Angeles, where owning is just outside the question. And so, um, I'm on an email chain. My friends Brian and Rob, we always share ideas and exchange provocative thoughts and debate each other. And they're avid readers of Saturday Cup of Joe. So thank you both for always reading and commenting. I really appreciate it. And Brian sent me, a Matt Iglesias article. Actually, there's two Matt Iglesias articles in this Cup of Joe. So thank you, Brian. But the one here is he was measuring these superstar cities. And one of the thoughts he threw out in his piece was about the how much awesome stuff is in your city. So these superstar cities like DC, New York, Seattle, San Francisco, it's because of awesome stuff. And that struck me because it's like I'll pay to live close to awesome stuff was kind of his theory about why these superstar cities remain superstar cities. But I actually thought that missed the point a little bit. Um, I kind of thought of it instead of how much awesome stuff is in your city. I thought of it as how much unique stuff is in your city. So what's the combination of character, unique experiences, unique people, industry, business, scarcity of experience, or scarcity of stuff, meaning that it's the type of experience you can't get anywhere else, or it's the combination of people, place, and things that make it what it is. And I think of it almost like when you're applying for a job, your unique set of skills and experiences make you different, make you unique. And I think we could tie how much unique stuff is in your city to this concept of millennials wanting to mean something and millennials wanting to change the world. And so for me, thinking about Detroit or thinking about whatever city you want to live in and comparing cities, especially, we know it's a market. We know there will be different types of people who like different types of cities, the same way there are people who like different size, shape, color houses, right? But, he puts in the article, Matt Iglesias puts in the article about how LeBron James left Cleveland for Miami, right? Because Miami's awesome and warm and has all this exciting things going on. It's a very international city. But one of the things I noted that he didn't was LeBron came back. LeBron came back to Cleveland to deliver something special, to deliver a unique experience to the city they hadn't had in generations, right? A championship. And I think LeBron, being like me, one of the leading edge millennials, one of the elder millennials, you know, is more attuned to that and more representative of that than I think is giving credit for. So when I think of a city where you want to be, why the next belt is special, why you may want to buy a house anywhere, but particularly in a unique place, is for the story, is for the experience, is for this unique scarcity of what makes you you in your story, what makes a city a city. And you know, I think that, yeah, sure, LeBron then went to Los Angeles, right? Then went to LA. That's all part of the story. And I don't know that I'm saying you have to come to Detroit and live here and die here. I'm saying that there's a certain segment at just the right time now that should evaluate these cities, that should be looking at Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, to make a difference, to come and actually participate in the unique set of circumstances and experience, not to exclude the folks that live here, not to box out or not to gentrify, not to capitalize on like buying a stock low, the way you may think of it as an investment, but rather to join in and become part of the history and character of a place that is more attainable in the next belt than it is on some of these uh, the larger cities on the coast. I don't know if that resonates. I honestly don't. I don't know if it will resonate with younger people, but you know, part of the thing that struck me this week when I said themes came together, this GameStop, that's funny, GameStop stock, GME, it's about the story and the experience of it as much as it is in the investment, right? Is there one guy who put in $50,000 and that $50,000 became $15 million this week? Yes, there's that one guy and we're all hearing about him. For the most people, when you got in, how much you got in for was more about let's see what happens. Let's have the experience. Let's be part of a incredible once in a moment, once in a generation story. The pieces of that story that also struck me, which were unrelated, but in my mind became related. I got a story sent to me this week about this Asian fish, arowana, and it's a collectible fish. They're actually illegal in the United States because we, I guess, made a law not to be part of the trafficking and exploitation of this fish. But in other countries, Eastern Europe, Russia, China, Japan, this fish is a collector's item and they're worth tens of thousands of dollars. And people, of course, because it's illegal, they're black market, arowana fish, and they're constantly being monitored and this and that. But it's about the scarcity. It's about the unique experience of owning something that has this perception behind it, and it's purely you're paying for your own perception of a thing, right? Matt Levine is a great blogger for Bloomberg who sends out a daily email, and he's been growing in popularity during the pandemic as well. And a bunch of people in my life are sharing Matt Levine thoughts and articles this week. So thank you all for sending those in. And One that Brian, Robb, and I were going over was this concept of buying NBA cards, NBA clips, video clips, digital video clips, and collecting them. And I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast about the sports card market. So just your typical cardboard, baseball card, NBA card, and how a lot of them are going for, 10, 20, $50,000 a card. Some of the box sets are going for $180,000. Well, Matt Levine highlighted that there's actually limited edition video clips, digital video clips, where the NBA is selling like 50 video clips of a dunk, you know, and people are paying tens of thousands of dollars to own a video clip in their archive that they could put, they could then put on their site or they could eventually monetize someday. But for now, it's purely a collector's item. Lives on the blockchain, so there's a limited number of versions. It's a scarcity thing, but people just want to be a part of something, right? Maybe the investment works out, maybe it doesn't, but there's no way it's about the dollars and cents if you're buying a dunk, a video clip of a dunk for $30,000. What's it about? The story. It's about the experience. It's about the potential. It's about the hope. That's what drives some of these moments is, you know, you want to get these hedge fund managers on CNBC crying about the fundamentals and why people aren't investing in the economics and the fundamentals of a company, but it's because something else has been introduced or really has been there all along, and that's the emotion. That's the response. And so I think of cities the same way. What is the scarcity of a city that, I'm obviously buying stock in the Midwest as part of this, right? I'm saying like, this is the moment to have that experience. There is a scarcity of really unique qualities to Detroit that I like to highlight, but I also know it's not for everyone. And, one of the things that is required is a sensitivity to the place and the people. And, the other Matt Iglesias article that ties in here was this concept that he wrote about with his housing supply and gentrification and what's the right way to look at it. And he breaks down a bunch of academic views, which I'll include, but he and I agree on one fundamental thing, which was supply, supply, supply. To make affordable housing and to make these cities accessible, any city accessible to a new generation of people, we need more supply. And we have to bring, whether it's rental, multifamily, single family, anything, bring as much supply to the good stuff in your city, to the areas of your city that can be built out, and you will make more affordable housing across the entire housing spectrum by bringing supply on. And then he talks a little bit about gentrification and the risks there. And I think that there are development risks there's a difference between pushing out people who live there almost in an intentional strategy way versus creating opportunities for development and building the economic value and base of a place holistically and creating housing that does include everyone in the spectrum, not by mandate, though some cities are trying it that way, but instead by market value and looking at ways that create value across the entire economy. So, housing, small business, retail, and big business that share in the growth of a place. And that's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is how do you develop in a way that gives everyone an opportunity to share in the economic growth the same way you'd share in a stock growth, right? Why can't we think about cities, economic development, investment, the same way we think about some of the other investments like stocks, collectibles, some of these things we've been talking about? So I'll throw in some other links to how people are innovating that way, taking rundown assets, broken down assets, and flipping them to be, retrofitting them or renovating them to be usable assets, whether for housing or community development or economic value. But you have to do it holistically to find that tremendous value. It's not going to work in these one off luxury condo or one off housing developments in the middle of a city close by to a park if it doesn't have this more holistic approach. So supply, 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 of course, but with the perspective that we are talking about economic development that has to be meaningful across assets that are currently underutilized, like empty shopping malls or empty big box stores. It has to be meaningful across market rate housing that borders the good things that are happening, the unique things that are happening in a city, that borders the park, that borders the public space that's been revitalized. That has to be protected and developed as part of an overall plan. And if you can do that, you can kind of recognize, the privilege, right? Because what I'm talking about is people who have money to throw at GameStop for fun, who have money to throw at a fish to collect it and have it on their mantle or have it in their home. We're talking about the privilege of investing in NBA cards, NBA clips. That's a privilege. And my friend Damon Carter, colleague from Caddock Financial in Connecticut, wrote his third piece, his article on, you know, the tech world's relationship with racism and systemic racism and hiring and retention and diversity, equity and inclusion issues. And so I'll link to that as well. But he really writes about this privilege. And when you hear these GameStop traders talking about YOLO trades, you only live once, so I'm just going to throw it out there. You're hearing a privileged experience say like everything's going to work out. I can try this, because I'm comfortable and everything will work out. And I think we're headed towards somewhat of a clash there to say, you can do that, but there's a privilege that comes along with that. And the same way I'm thinking about the unique experiences of cities and talking about them and highlighting them, talking about the unique experiences of people and making sure that in the excitement of GameStop or NBA cards or all these investments, we're also talking about equity in society. And when somebody's out in LA building the one, a $500 million house, which is going to become the largest square footage house in the country, 100,000 square feet, on one hand, you have to be able to talk about those in service jobs, hourly jobs in cities like Detroit and Cleveland who can't save a month or two of expenses. There's a recent article, a survey by Bankrate saying what percentage of Americans don't have any reserves for any monthly expenses. So if you're running a team, if you're running a company, if you're selling products to consumers, being aware of what privileges we're talking about, what scarcity you're exploiting or highlighting and storytelling about, respond accordingly. In Damon's piece, Damon says, like, lead with purpose, be genuine in your efforts, include the community, the people in the mix. I think those are great. Obviously, it's a great comment and commentary on creating a DEI program, a diversity, equity, inclusion program in your tech company and in your IT department. But I also think of that as a leader of a team, a leader of a company, a leader in a city. Lead with purpose, be genuine in your efforts, and include the whole community in the mix. And that will be able to highlight and storytell around the unique set of experiences and opportunities in your city to help the next belt compete and attract people to our story, but then also to recognize there's still privilege out there and there's still something to be said for how we all come together. Like I said, to share in the value, the same way you can own a share of stock and it goes up or down and you're part of it. You are owning a share of wherever you live, and home ownership is owning a share of a community. And even though we haven't quite figured out how to slice up those shares and sell them more individually like stocks, I'm working on that. But even though we haven't figured that out yet, recognize that you are sharing in that and that we're all sharing in that, whatever city you're in, Manhattan to San Francisco with Detroit in between. We have a unique set of experiences we can talk about in our cities and attract people and let the market shake out, right? Let the market play out from there. And I think that's one of the most exciting, fun aspects of this is capitalizing on the energy of a whole bunch of people with a common purpose, like disrupting a market. Similarly, how do we disrupt years and years of mismanagement of investment, mismanagement of community development, communities that were left out, forgotten about, intentionally excluded, and now thinking of it more holistically as all of us sharing in what we can create, the stories we can tell, the scarcity and the unique set of experiences in our city. So I ran over. This has been longer than I anticipated. Like I said, streams of consciousness will do that. Thank you for listening. Always appreciate any time or attention, and share these articles. Let me know your feedback. Can't wait to talk to you again next week. Continued success.